Hi, my name is Greg Canty, and I'd like to welcome you to the Win Happy podcast. I love chatting to people from all walks of life about their lives and their careers, about the choices they make along the way to pursue their happiness, and what winning actually means to them. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chatted with visual artist Hammond Journeax, who's based in the beautiful West Cork village Ballydahub. Hammond, who is originally from Wyndham in New Zealand, was the most lovely host along with her 3 little dogs in her unusual cottage, which, by the way, is haunted. She spoke about her life and career, her love of horses, her love of books, and of course her love of art, and the challenge that presents for a working artist in Ireland. Have some fun with a pencil, she was once told, and she has spent her lifetime doing exactly that. Let's hear from Hammond. Hammond Journeax, a huge welcome back to the Win Happy podcast.
Thank you very much. Let's hope it's a clear run.
Now, for the listeners, they'll have heard me saying welcome back. And the truth is, we've done this before, and something very peculiar happened. I was busy editing, and everything was going fine, and after literally 5 minutes, bump, all audio just disappeared. And a bit like today, we have all of the equipment set up, it's all recording. And when I rang you to say, Hammond, I have no idea what happened here, you weren't surprised, were you?
No, I wasn't particularly surprised.
Come on, tell me.
Do I have to elaborate?
I think you should, because it is just too interesting.
It's too interesting. Well, we are in the front room of a very old house, probably one of the oldest houses in Ballydahub. And it has a history, but I don't know entirely the whole history, whether it's myth or fact. But anyhow, for me, my experiences within the house have certainly let me believe in ghosts.
Okay.
And other entities anyway.
Did you believe in ghosts and those other entities before you
came to this house? Well, I was brought up in New Zealand, and yes, I think there was in the 70s, 80s, there was kind of like UFO business.
Yeah. And
seeing those kind of things. So that kind of would make you aware there were things going on down there, and I think there were some Americans checking it out as well in the Southern Hemisphere at that point in time for some reason. It was probably just their own business. Probably do something to do with the military or whatever. But anyhow, so the house has let me know that there's been a lot of life here before, as in lights, which is common, I think, with people would say that their lights go on or off, and walking along the passageway. And then I put in sliding doors into the garden, and someone was using the sliding doors and like slapping like bread. You know how you make bread and you'd slap it down? And I would be in bed at night and things like that would go off and the dogs would start barking. So I would then say that I'm not imagining it. They're also sensing there's something else. There's another presence. I'm not afraid of it or them or whatever it is. I just know there are quirky things about the house that are special to the house.
How long are you in the house?
I would have come in 96, then had a separation from the house, and then came back again in 2014. I think it was around that time. So since I've come back, that's when I would have been more conscious of that, because I was alone in the house. And, well, the last time it did something strange, apart from you, was that I was sitting here and I had a lady and we were doing like a therapy thing. And then there was like 3 thumps on the stairs and the dog started barking. And I said to her, oh God, there really is something going on here at the moment. So that was the last time that I was particularly close to it. So then that would have been probably just before you came and recorded. So she could hear it too, because it was, you do Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So she could hear the thumping on the
Oh, it was
stairs
that
on the
loud?
passage. And I was sitting where the dog is now, and you're just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So it's kind of like I couldn't believe it, but I could believe it at the same time.
When you took the house, did anyone tell you, ooh, there's something about that house? Does the house have a reputation?
Yes, it did, I think. I think it did. Because I then had the whole house, like the house was blessed, and the only thing that cleared it was, in fact, a priest, Father Dennis, came, and he went round every single room with water and oil and prayers, and we did a mass, and we had to go through all the people that lived in the house, all of the relationships that one has had in one's life, and it was very special. And afterwards, it was very, very emotional. There was a priest, another lady with him, I can't remember who she was, and Nellie Cotter came. So it was just us, and I ended up crying actually quite deeply, and then everything was calm. But I'd had the stations in this house, and it didn't stop it. Had prayers said in the house, and it didn't stop it. It actually only stopped after it had the special ceremony done.
What do you think it is?
Oh, what do I think it is? Energy. It's obviously energies from the past. Well, they always think some of those ghost stories would be that they're unresolved. People don't realise they've died, or I don't. Or like to do with us reading with Buddhism, you would tell somebody that they died and open the window and let the spirit go. But say you've actually died, to let them know they died. And I think that's rather an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a guy that used to be a client of ours,
Mm-hmm.
a guy who worked in hospitality.
Yes.
And a very, very experienced restaurateur would have been very good on the motion study, efficiency.
Oh, yes.
All that kind of thing. He would have said himself that he would have been a hard enough sort of a character.
Yes.
He's the kind of guy you'd bring in if your hotel or your restaurant was in trouble. He'd go through it and tell you you're too many staff or...
Well, sorry, they're probably going to be rude because they might think the fox is coming.
That's okay. Or that your procedures are off or something like that. So that was his career, that was his profession, and he ran restaurants. And he was telling me he was somewhere with his dog, and suddenly there was someone on top of him, an old woman, going crazy on top of him, choking him, holding him down. And he didn't know what that was. His own dog, all hair standing up on its back and all that kind of thing. And
yes,
this thing, whatever it was, just went away again. And he said he was petrified, and for a few days he could barely get out of bed. The whole incident was so traumatic. And what he discovered after was that he's quite connected to the spirits, and what happened is
yes,
there was a spirit that was trapped. Because he's like a medium,
okay,
the spirit came to him, and he needed that incident to try and figure all of that out. So now he does a lot of work in that whole area. He does a lot of work with crystals and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
What he said to me was that when you see a young child, when they're down on the floor,
yes,
and they're playing away, and the other way a young child can start chatting to someone,
yes,
their imaginary friend.
yes, it's not imaginary.
That's what he says.
No.
And he basically said when the child is so young, they're still close to the spirit world.
Yes.
And with a lot of us, we just lose that as time goes on, and we never reflect on it or anything like that.
No.
But he said in many cases, that child actually is talking to someone or a thing. And some people maintain that gift. For example, my daughter, you see a scary woman. She grew up around Ballincollig. We lived in Ballincollig.
Yes.
You see this scary woman that used to appear.
Yes.
And it used to absolutely scare the bejesus out of her.
Yes, yes.
And we all thought Ellen was a little bit bonkers.
But she's clairvoyant.
I think so.
Yes.
Now, one simple example of it, she came to me one day. My team was Liverpool.
Right.
And they were going really, really well in a particular season, and they had a match against one of their biggest rivals. It was Man United.
Oh, yes.
And the goalkeeper hadn't conceded a goal and all this kind of thing. And my daughter said to me, they're going to lose today 4-0 at Liverpool. But
wow.
This was just ridiculous. There was no way that was going to happen.
Yes.
So I remember we were sitting in a hotel lobby watching the match, having a drink or two, and within a few minutes, our top defender got sent off.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Guess what the score in the game was?
Exactly what your daughter predicted for now.
So I have no idea. So maybe the spirits caught here.
Yes. You've actually reminded me of something. Oh, my son was like that, our eldest son, in the wardrobe, and he actually told the play school. But we were living right on the border of a graveyard, and they had hung the priest from there, but during the Reformation. But actually, when I drove back once, I had an exhibition in London, and I was driving back, and then I realised I couldn't get the whole distance, and I stayed in Yole, and I stayed in a hotel in a bed and breakfast in Yole, and it was haunted, and a cat came in, and someone sat on the end of the bed. And in the morning, I said to them about this, and they didn't say anything to me. But they definitely would have had people in that room had the same experience, where a cat came in the window, window was shut, and somebody sitting on the end of the bed. Have you heard of that in Yole?
I haven't heard of that place in Yole. But I wonder, is part of it are you a medium in some way?
My grandmother was. My father's mother was. She once told who the Grand National winner was going to be to her, because her second husband, who wasn't my grandfather, was a gambler. And he didn't do it because he said, that's ridiculous. That's just like what your daughter's saying. It was just didn't make sense at all. And of course, that horse romped home.
Oh my God.
Completely. Well, they would have been filthy rich, but they weren't. And then her brothers were killed in the war. So it meant that I think it was like knocking 3 times to let them know on the wall, and that happened, and they knew they were dead then. But yes, I did, like your daughter, when my father was skiing on a ski trip, and I said they're going to come home, and my mother's going, no, they're not. They're not due back for days. But they did come home.
You sensed it?
Yeah, I just went down. Like I said to them, my grandfather was dead, and he was dead. Came down the passageway and announced my grandfather's death before they knew he died. So, your daughter afraid of herself for that?
She was petrified at that time.
And now?
No.
It's dissipated.
It seems to have left her. Where she's still very good, I would notice, compared to other people.
Mm.
Do you know yourself if there's days when you're just not quite yourself? You're sad, you're a little bit down, and no one would know.
But she will know.
She'd sit in the car with you and she'd look across and, you're sad today, Dad.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm thinking,
how do you know that?
How in the name of God did you know that? There's no messing with you.
No, there's no hidden. I think from what I've observed of life now, is that people aren't really allowed to know themselves. This intuition is frowned upon, and this is where all this comes in, I think. And it's really that sense that's quite a beautiful thing to own up to, if you're able to go with your gut feeling, not knowing why you don't like something or why you love something so much. And I think if you deny that in a child or a person or anybody, they've lost a great part of themselves.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful that you've encouraged her to be yourself.
Yeah, because, like you say, you could easily tell her, you're being crazy, shut up.
Well, I'm sure there are plenty of people that were locked up in a period of time. And also, well, we can go into the witches, but that was, that's, people knowing things, sensing things.
Yeah.
and other people are afraid of it. Because maybe just someone can look at somebody and say, like they would go about someone with small eyes or big eyes or the soul, and all these judgments on our characteristics or what we are. But you would do that when you look at an animal, like because I was brought up with horses, and when you were buying or selling a horse or working with a horse, you're reading their body language and they're reading your body language equally.
Yeah.
So you would tend to not have a horse with a walled eye, which would be a horse with a white bit in the eye. You'd step aside from that for some reason. And it's like this, I've got this little dog here with this tiny little pig eyes. And he's like, he takes that whole thing and takes it and puts it away because he's so beautiful. But that would have been a dog that you would be, by those standards, you would say, don't buy a dog with small little eyes. But actually, he's totally in love with me. So he's not, he hates the lawnmower man. So maybe he would say his little pig eyes have cursed him. But I said to the vet, he just won't. He goes for my poor Kevin. He just goes ape. He gets right down low with his haunches on the ground and he just bark.
My God.
Yeah, really funny. So he's sort of like sitting down like a baby crawling, going at him like that kind of thing, just barking himself crazy.
But he did give me a greeting, but fairly quickly I think they knew I was okay.
Yeah.
I was one of the good guys, hopefully.
But you haven't mown the lawn.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe if you mow the lawn, he would go. But I think actually, to tell you the truth, I'm pretty sure that Kevin used to walk with a stick. So he would have gone past the house waving a stick, and maybe the two of them met one day, and that stick waving was enough to be a lifetime of staying clear.
So you're okay with the house?
Okay, I love the house. I've always loved
Even
the
with
house.
your invisible friends?
Yes, I am actually. I am. I think that I'd love to make the house beautiful and do lots with it, but I can't afford to do that. So I'm sort of more or less squatting in the house, but I know it loves me.
That's good.
I really think it does, because the people that are here feel niceness in it, that come and stay or whatever. They love the house too, and will say that about having stayed here.
Do you give them the warning?
No. No, actually, some of them have been afraid. When I think back now, there was a girl, a student, who was a little bit afraid. But she did come back and stay again. But she did feel like a presence, like your daughter's presence in the bedroom. But no, I have actually had extraordinary things happen in this house.
Like what? Come on.
Okay, so I had a neck injury. And my friends told me, never tell the story. Never tell the story. Because I don't know why she's not alive anymore. But she said to me, you shouldn't really tell the story. There were a lot of things happen because I had this serious injury. And I think you possibly do move into another realm of yourself in the brain or wherever. And I remember going to the doctor that I've been through walls. I walked through walls, and I really went up, and I went through the walls and the ceiling, and saw imagery and heard things. So I think maybe if you're in incredible pain, and maybe a lot of soldiers or people with severe illnesses go through that, and possibly. So I actually woke once when, this is going to sound rather strange, but it's a true fact for me. And there were very tall entities in the room, and they had operated. The back of my whole head was missing. It was like it was all on fire.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like they were working on my head and neck, and that was where the injury was, in my neck. It was like the back of my head had gone, and they were like in the four corners of the room, these great big things. So I woke up in the middle of something like that and had extraordinary things. So I then wanted my surgery done quicker. I had a beautiful surgeon called Michael G.J. O'Sullivan. He's a beautiful man, and he'd gone on holiday. So when I rang the doctor and say, I actually want it put forward, I want it faster, because I thought if I slept during the day. Like at night I would have these things happen. And so I was scared going to bed at night because I was having out-of-body experiences. And then what happened was, I remember this. She wasn't my doctor for terribly long after this, because I realised you couldn't really say, certain, you can say certain things to certain people and they take it different ways. So she thought I needed antidepressants for actually saying what was going on in my body. But this is a long time ago. It's not the beautiful doctor I have now, the woman doctor I have now. But, oh God. So that makes you afraid to say what goes on. And then now, much later in life, I've got a dear friend from America who met and was with Bernie Siegel, who's quite an amazing gentleman, surgeon, and went and would play music to his patients when he was doing surgery and realized that they were better for that. And Stress is an amazing man. I'd say people should look him up. And he does lovely meditations and things. And you feel a lot rested, and I actually fall asleep sometimes when I do it, so it's very peaceful indeed. But he would allow his patients to discuss things like that and have a dialogue about having had that other. So it's much more open now, possibly, than before, because it's happening more frequently. Well, it's not probably happening more frequently. People are allowing a discussion around it, because it is an experience that would possibly frighten those that don't want to believe or are just quite closed.
When I was here the last time...
Did you have something fly around in your head?
No, you were telling me about your pal who had passed away and her books.
Oh, which...
Did you get to sort them out?
Oh, so you mean Susan O'Toole?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't sorted those. Was I going to sort those all out? Was that the thing, the mission?
I think you were telling me that you had all of her books in another room and you were going to get to that at some point.
That's true. Well, I'll be very honest and say that I haven't got to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And the room is chaotic now. I can hardly get in there. So I have put some of her books with my books, but no, I've got a lot of books to go through. She had a Tracy Emin book, which has found its way up on the shelf up there. I can show you. That was a really nice little book. Tracy Emin's drawings are very her own unique way. She said she had to learn to redraw in her own style. So I have got that with my books. As you can see, I have a lot of books.
You have one or two?
that keep multiplying. And it's really very difficult, because I was really thrilled because I was in a Thai. I went to Ima last week on Wednesday. They were announcing... I don't like to say this word, but they were calling it an anti-sculpture, which is in County, I like County Clare. They have it's very beautiful. They have got a beautiful forest, an ancient forest, that's for all the women that are for the cervical cancer debunk, the whole shenanigans there. So Vicky Phelan, I met her mom, which was really special, on Wednesday. And so there's this forest.
How is she?
She's lovely woman. So I'm not very good at saying his name. Mohon Mangan? Mohon? Anyway, I was very blessed to be given something to draw about women's words and their bodies. So I'm going to get that to her. But, how did I get onto that? Oh, looking at the books.
Yeah, we were talking about your friend's books and bringing the books together.
Yes, bringing them together. And do you know what was crazy? I ended up being in a Thai, that's why I'm going to say it, and there was a Paul Durkin book there, The Art of Life of Poetry book, and I looked in this window of this bookshop and I thought, oh my God, how much, I've just got to get that. So I went in there and I asked the lady how much the book was, and I felt terrible. It was €1.
Oh.
so I was like shocked. And every book was €1. So I came out with 7 books.
To add to your collection.
So that's how it just keeps growing. But I couldn't believe it. Then I was in bed and I was reading it, and I just had on the weekend, was that? I can't remember the date that weekend. And we have a dog show on Shirkin Island. And in Paul Durkin's book, of course, the 2 poems on dogs. And a friend very kindly opened the exhibition, which is like with dog paintings or drawings or whatever, and poetry, if anyone wants to write poetry as well. And I thought, right, next year, it's a Paul Durkin poem that's going to be read. So that was really nice too. When you open up a book and you find something like that, it's you say, yes, that's how I saw you. And I'd say that that's a bit of gut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bit of intuition.
Are there a lot of secrets in those books?
There are. There are. It's actually very interesting when you buy a second-hand book, because you often find that the previous readers left bits in behind.
Yeah.
And today I was going through books and I was finding how, there was a book that was in the back room with my children's books. And I was thinking, I'm not going to get grandchildren the way my guys are carrying on. It's just not going to happen, I don't think. And so I thought, right, it's time to get rid of these books. So I was going through them. And then I found The Little Prince, and it was signed to the boys by Derek, so it was lovely. So I was talking to my son at the time, and I said, oh, Derek signed the book to you, so I'm not going to give that one away. So any of the ones that were signed by people, I'm going to keep those ones, but the majority of them, because you just end up with more of more. And I think children should be able to read other people's children's books. It's rather neat. Yeah. They're not too precious then, are they? But, well, sometimes when you get books that have been signed and they want, they don't, for value of books, they don't really want them, they just become untouchable, because the value goes if you get a smudgy mark on them or something. Whereas I actually quite like the smudgy marks.
Books have lasted that whole technological revolution, haven't they? Well, I know we were chatting earlier about records and
yes.
How they went out of fashion with CDs and cassettes and everything, and now they're kind of back. I think there's something very special about a book. I
hope and pray that they never go. I know that the children that are now going into secondary school, it's all on computer, they're trying to save the books by being all on computer, but I don't know how great that is all for your eyes. One of our clients, multiple sclerosis, the MS Readathon this year, and basically it's encouraging kids to read books. Big campaign around it. So Hammond, my listeners are very used to a particular sequence on the podcast. Of events. And of course, I think as well, the last day we spoke, we did exactly the same. We ended up taking a huge detour at the very, very beginning. So the question I like asking everyone, because I'd like for the listener to get to know you as much as possible. Okay. So, who the hell are you and where did you come from? Straight up. Yeah. Okay, I was born in the countryside in New Zealand in a place called Wyndham. And I have lived here in Ireland since 96. And I met an Irishman in London. Wow. And that's how I got to Ireland. It's all his fault. No, it's quite beautiful, really, isn't it? It would be the closest to being in New Zealand would be to be in Ireland, I think. Did you have a good life in New Zealand? Yes, I realised I was very privileged. A child, really, to live on a farm with ponies and horses and sheep. That's what makes a good rugby player. Tackling sheep. No, I definitely think I was, when I look back on it now, I'd have loved my children to have had some of those experiences running free. Children don't have that freedom anymore, I notice. Like you don't really climb trees anymore. And tell me about your mum and dad. What did they do? Well, my mother rode for New Zealand. So therefore I was, that's why I'd say we're quite privileged to have amazing people staying. So you would have, as the New Zealand team, Lockie Richards. So he used to come and stay. So I was very lucky to ride in front of him and have lessons with him, and he taught me that you could have this large jump in front of you, walk towards it a couple of paces and go over, And I think that's something, go over the jump as a unit, not be thrown over the jump, something like that. But so that's a thing about having trust and faith in somebody else. So when you're in the company of someone that's an expert in the field, you learn things that you, and I think that goes with absolute all learning and teaching. When you have a very good tutor, they live within you forever. Those experiences and those ways of writing or seeing or understanding and listening and watching, and when someone changes your sentences around and shows you, is huge, that you can't possibly learn without witnessing. And I think that growing up with nature, like being, I guess we'd be kind of like wild things, and was an outdoors life, but always loved museums and galleries.
You did?
Yes. And I think it's because we lived in a young country, and it was going into seeing the old. And even when I went to go around the world myself, it was to go to America. Didn't interest me so much as to come to Europe where it was old. And also because I got very interested in here, and it's just a fascinating life right outside the door here, all around you, the stones and the walls. We had in Middlemarch, New Zealand, Ireland would remind me of that. There would be stones, rock cottages and things as well. So it's like a home away from home. In fact, it's home here now, really. Ireland is for me. I'd find it hard to go back to New Zealand because I think I've been so spoiled with all the festivals and all the events that take place in Ireland. My niece came over, she couldn't handle the weather, but I've obviously in the time I've been here, I've acquired a thick skin and it's not so bad for me. But it is a shock initially, the weather is a shock to get used to.
It is. Sometimes you're here your whole life, you don't get used to it.
But no.
Your mum actually performed at an elite level.
Yes. Do you know what? It's very like, initially she had the only horse that did a clear round, and Pat Smythe had just been at the Olympics, and she rode my mother's horse because it was the only one that did the clear show jumping around. It's called Cinders, and I've got the picture in the hall there when I walk past it each day. So no, she did do eventing and show jumping. So that's what we did. We did dressage, one day eventing, show jumping, and showing as in like perfection with turnout and riding and girl riders and all that sort of jazz as well. Yeah, that was one thing Lockie Richards said. You don't ride like a champion girl rider, ride like a rider. Don't sit there looking pretty, in other words. make use.
To people who operated at an elite level, at whatever profession it is, be it an artist or an athlete or a business person, I'm sure there's perspectives that they have that everyone else just wouldn't have because they've been at an elite level. And if they happen to be your mum or someone visiting your family, must be gems that they give you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My grandmother went with Carl Journeax, and they bought the first Hanoverian into New Zealand, stallion. And that actually he went infertile, but it was quite sad really. But anyhow, we had one of his, Winnebeo, one of his offspring. But I guess it's similar in a sense that the drawing, the eye, you're looking and you're seeing and it's not far removed. But I remember my father and Lockie going, when my mother was doing something and father said something and Lockie said, it's to my mother that it also someone who isn't too sure can sometimes see. Someone that's not actually riding. My father wasn't riding, but he thought something didn't look quite right and said something, and Lockie agreed and said, yeah. So it's very important that we're open to that as well, that sometimes people that aren't in the field can actually see things and help us to line up correctly. Like I've noticed the position of the riders now is very changed. Their arms aren't where we were having our arms by our sides and very classical. And I think it's much, in my own way, I think it's nicer, the past, to be very erect.
Do you still ride?
No, I'd never ride again because of my injury. But I was really blessed because somebody asked me to help them with their riding, so I had the honour of doing that, being near horses again and using the skills that I had acquired.
My daughter was a great little rider.
Is this the one that...
Yeah, the same girl. And she lost her confidence along the way. She went through a bad patch and totally and utterly lost her confidence.
Yes.
Including with the horse riding. And a few years back, I remember, I don't know, birthday or Christmas, buying her some lessons.
Yes.
Just to go back and start doing it again. And she just went once, maybe a second time, and just didn't do it again. Maybe it just wasn't the same. But I thought it was a huge shame. She, even as a young kid, she had that relationship with the horses.
Yes.
And she wasn't
She's special.
Yeah, she wasn't afraid to control them, you know, however you view that or explain it. But she was really, really good. Yeah,
they had a bond.
Yeah.
They would do anything for you. I had a pony that the person rode it before in what's called a hackamore. It was bitless and would never jump a water jump. But in the end, the pony would do anything for me. It's quite interesting, the relationship that you can have with an animal. And they do actually, some of them wouldn't like men or they wouldn't like women. They have their own way of letting people know. Like a dog, they would let the rider know.
How did that horse change its behaviour?
Because I spent most of my, with the horse. Like I would come home from school and be talking to the horse, and I never would beat the horse or anything, and just reward. And actually, I remember just going so fast he couldn't possibly stop. At one point, it's like, we're going over this kind of thing. And by then, and you jumped everything else. So you just he then got into a rhythm and trusted me.
So he trusted you. If you think we can do it, well, we can.
I honestly think so.
Yeah.
And I trusted him. Yeah. I actually competed in a dressage saddle doing a 2-day event through every phase, which is completely wrong. And in fact, they shouldn't have, possibly now they wouldn't even allow you to do it. And that was because I rode long, wrapped my legs right round, and we won it. Even though it was in a Steuben dressage saddle, straight cut. Yeah, I think I loved him very much. And I think he had that. Because when you spend all your time with an animal and they get to trust you, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It really is. And to be carried over jumps is something else.
It's a relationship, is it?
Completely. Yeah. And my father actually considered, he ended up leaving my mother, but he always thought the horses came first, and I'd say they did. He couldn't compete with a horse. Poor man. But no. But he worked very hard on the farm and made it beautiful and loved planting trees. And we lived, I realised, a life that was pretty special.
Tell me about the art. When did that creep into your life?
Always. Always drawing. Always drawing. As a child, and my mother wished that for me. And my father later on, he realised that there's no stopping it. There was always that fear, I think, for parents. They sort of think, oh my God, how are you going to survive? How can you do that? And also, I think possibly people used to do things in their life even if they didn't want to do that profession. They didn't. So it would be a statement like, you have to do in life things, not all the things you want to do. You'll have to do things you don't want to do as well. So it wasn't seen as permissible, which I think there are probably lots of people the same.
Did you realise I'm talented at this thing?
No, I don't think you do really. You just do it.
Yeah.
And it's just something that you are. A bit like the riding. It's something that you are. And also because of the riding, it's always marching forward for perfection is you're never there up the mountain. You're always striving to feel or to be the position. And so therefore, it's a wonderful opportunity to keep expanding in all directions, because you can master something for it and then it moves to something else.
Is that still the case?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're not done yet.
No, I don't think there's...
Are you still practicing?
Practice is practice is practice. But I think there's a lot of it is possibly, people say people are gifted, and I think possibly people are gifted.
Yeah.
But I think that it's to do with the eye and the hand, and it's that for absolutely everything, isn't it?
I think people are gifted. No, part of it, I'm sure, is exposure and circumstance. If you happen to grow up in a house where your mum is a champion horse rider, well, if you're exposed to that every single day, there's a good chance you're going to be really good. If you have an interest.
Yes.
You might reject it and hate it, and I never want to do that thing
did.
ever. Yeah, that was him.
That was him. He used to jump off and leave us with the horse to take home.
Was the art your gift? Did that come from anyone else in the family?
I truthfully think my mother's sister that died at 15 for brain tumour, I think she was gifted with drawing. My mother said she had a little book that she'd kept, and Audrey, I think, did draw. And then that possibly could be why Mother wanted it for me. Yeah. It maybe reminded her of her sister that had died. And that was a big thing in a family too. She had surgery, and they knew when she started going blind that it was the end, the second time. And I don't know if today they would have been able to have done anything for her or not.
Were you drawing all of the time?
Yes.
Always.
Always. My brother used to draw with me at times, but he used to draw he used to be drawing boxes and boxes. I don't know what he was drawing all these boxes for, but he was drawing lots of boxes where I'd be doing other things. But no. And we did a lot of sport. My mother's family were good at sport. So she would do cross-country running and short distance running. Everything was... So it was the weather's very different there too, which helps probably. Not that you don't have good Irish runners as well, but it's be strong to be doing it.
And do you draw every day now?
I would try to.
Is it like a drug, Hammond? If you don't, there's something wrong.
Let's say that the more one does it, the more pleasure one has in life. And some days you can draw terribly, and that can be often enough too. I went in Prague in 1997, and I'll never forget, because it really was I was having a lousy drawing session, and this wonderful man said to me, he goes, will you come to the opera with me? And I go, no, I want to start drawing better. I just can't get these drawings right today. And I regret that, because I should have just said, yes, I'll go to the opera with you. Because Prague was full of opera houses, and his name was Jean Calder. I said, I just want to get this drawing, and when I think but see, that's what youth does, isn't it? It's not till afterwards that you think, my God, what a moment that you lost. But that shows I guess that might show how stubborn you are with yourself.
But is that extreme focus as well? If this is your thing, your profession, again, I think elite people in any sport, they are a bit
dogged,
and in ways you might say they could end up being very boring people. Is that all you do, really? And I can't go out because I have to exercise, and I can't have a drink, and I can't. I can only eat certain things. Oh my God! All right.
Well, I never wore heels. And this is really funny. This will make you laugh. On the night of the 9th I was told I had cervical cancer. And I had to, it was really funny because I had to go and have these tests done. And this girl goes to me, this nurse, she was being quite nasty actually. And she goes, you're wearing heels. And I said to her, yes, I am, because I never wore them when I was running as a child, and now I've got cancer. I will wear heels. At this point in my life, I'm going to wear heels. To which the doctor had said to her, take her to the next place, because they were running with me. They were fantastic. So I'll never forget him here. He said, take her down the hall and take her to the place because there are people staying behind late so that they can do this test for me, to put me through a test to find the results. And this girl just opened the door. This nurse just opened the door and said, down there. So I shouldn't have said to her why I was wearing heels. It didn't go down well. But no.
Your choice of subject matter to draw, how do you decide?
Well, when I was a child, like most little girls that love ponies, it was horses and animals and movement. So that was that. And then I came and I had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Green, who went on holiday, and we had a Marilyn Webb, a very famous New Zealand print artist, came to do the term that she was away when she'd gone to England. And it all changed. You just suddenly saw a whole different way when she was going through the art history with us and showing us things. So, then suddenly your world opens, and I never forget those two ladies. They were very special in their own way. I remember Marilyn Webb going, yes, they wanted me to be a nurse. So more or less told me at 16 that don't worry that your father wants you to go off and do X, Y, and Z, that whatever she saw in me, that's never going to be what you are. And even then I was sick in the boarding school thing, and I remember the doctor going, go and bring your drawing box. And then he was like, if you have any trouble with those teachers, send them to me. It was really funny. Like, because being sick, going, I don't feel well. Yeah. And them going, oh, you think you're making that up. But actually I had a gallbladder that needed to be removed later. So all the pains I was going on about, that's what it was. But it was quite young to have something like that. So I think the art sustains you through. It's your little thing that as a child that you're doing, as a young child you're drawing away. And then when you're an adolescent or something like that, you just don't stop because it's a part of you. And I think that I just love movement. So for me to draw people that are doing things or people that are engaged in their work, in their poetry, I find that nice to be drawing. When they're up to something that's deep for themselves, you get a different person. Or musicians playing music.
Do you see something different in them?
Absolutely. I think they're true to themselves.
Yeah.
And you can sort of get in the slipstream of that magic that's taking place.
So you're capturing something in a way, a moment.
Yeah, I remember Derek going to me. He wants the amazing hands, so Derek's hands, and it was like, so he held his hands like that, and I thought, oh my God, Derek, that's just a nightmare for me, because they're still hands. But then I started drawing lots of hands after that experience. But then once, he's lovely, like Seamus Heaney was really sweet, like he signed drawings when I drew him from the back, and I felt like I'd been drawing these jolly, guinea fowl and chickens and hens. I hadn't been really doing portraits and it's so funny when I went to draw him, I almost would have been, he looked more like probably a guinea fowl than Seamus Heaney. It's funny if you're getting in a run of drawing only animals. And then it was like the literary festival was on in Bantry, and that's where I went over, and I just thought, God, I've just got to, and he was very kind. But that's all part of life, isn't it? When you have these experiences and you realize that you're working towards in one direction, but there's a part of you going in another.
What did Seamus say to you?
What did Seamus say to me? Oh, he very kindly signed the drawing. Yeah. Then you have other people that I didn't, you sometimes get a shock, because some people kind of don't want to sign things, and I don't, so therefore you don't. It's strange. That kind of feeling is interesting.
Did he know you were drawing him?
It was really fast.
Yeah, okay.
He would have been possibly aware.
You'd wonder why someone wouldn't want to sign that. Maybe they just didn't understand the dynamic.
It's a bizarre feeling, isn't it? You draw a drawing of somebody and then you ask them to sign it. And it's nice because then people know that it's been done at the time, it's spontaneous. I think that's the value in it. It shows that it's spontaneously done. But then you don't always feel like you can do that. Mervyn Bragg was no problem. People like that would like it. It's different people, everyone's a different personality.
I wonder if someone took a gig, a speaking gig, or they were talked into doing an event, or they're on a book tour that they weren't really enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to capture them, if you were to draw them,
peeved off.
If you weren't happy being there in the first place, maybe that's like, I don't know, it's kind of closing the deal on how you were feeling or something. If you weren't happy in yourself in that day, maybe...
Yes.
Effectively in the drawing, you captured them and you captured something about that person.
Yeah. And I think it's very interesting because I was looking at my friend, I did some drawings of the friend that died, Susan, who've got some of her library. And I was thinking, gosh, her arms look short. And so then I went down, and because they did a retrospective kind of just in Ballydehob, and it's a very lovely little museum down there, and it's fantastic, and I'm most grateful that they have it. And anyway, Sue's work was there, and I was looking at the photograph, and I go to her friend Sarah, I go, her arms aren't that long, are they? And I realised that it's true, the drawing. So I came back and I thought, oh, that's not so bad, Sue. You really didn't have that longer arms. And in the clothes, the way they were drawn and that's quite funny, really. And even when you're looking at something sometimes and you're looking at it, you go, well, a photograph will get away with that, but a drawing, they're going to think it's not in proportion, it's not right. Well, actually, it jolly well could be right. Having shorter legs and a bigger head, Aesthetically not so pleasing to the eye.
Why did you leave New Zealand?
I was running away from my husband, that's the truth.
Ooh, I'm out of here.
Yes, it was a bit like that. And so I just did I threw it all away and came to London. So I said I'd take a year or two out of what I was doing. Then I met an Irishman, so I stayed.
Yeah, so only for that, might you have stayed there?
No, I made two choices with him. I had a horse, and I was enjoying riding, and I remember I always liked these MG sports car, and I thought, well, I could live here if I had that MG, and I would get the MG. And when I went to go to the garage to buy the MG, it had gone. I thought, well, I'll go too. So I left.
What stage of life were you? Were you
young,
operating as an artist, and were you...
No, I was actually working for the government doing children's dentistry.
Okay.
And the principal dental officer was fine with me. He saw that I had talent, so he was quite happy that I was doing that instead. So I made posters for recruitment and done things like that, and he was actually happy for me to say, I'm going to go and do the art and leave. And so I think that the teacher was correct. So if they see somebody like that, and that's what their life was about, like as she said, they thought she should be a nurse. But it was a nurse. She obviously, and that's, I think, really important for a tutor or a teacher to actually encourage the students, especially those that need it. Yeah. Probably all of them truthfully need it. It's just that it's a recognition that someone can maybe sense that someone needs to be told, you're not going to be able to wash that out. That stains in you.
You're stuck with that.
That's where you are. That's what you're here to do. Have some fun with a pencil.
Did you have people in London? Was that the beginning of a blank canvas life?
Actually, I had time as a nanny.
Yeah.
The Yeah.
But you were on your own some though. You didn't have family there or...
No, I would have had cousins and stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's a different... Actually, to tell you the truth, you're pretty green. Green would be the really green, not really understanding a lot of the world really at all. Very different. But I loved London for all the museums and the galleries. That's what I really did. And still do. Still do. I love the countryside for what it has to offer with being close to nature and walking and swimming in the sea. It's really great. And I come from that outdoors world, so it's lovely to be in the outdoors world. But at the same time, it's fantastic to be able to balance and go to and be totally absorbed and looking at things.
Did you become a new Hammond when you went there?
No.
No?
No, I didn't really, because you have a different opportunity in life. And you just actually, you have to close down the things that you knew. Like you don't go skiing anymore. You're not going to go skiing, or you're not going to go sailing and things like that. This is my life now, inside a museum, gallery, drawing, seeing things. Yes, you spend your time doing other things instead. And that's hugely rewarding, I think.
How long were you there?
96. So quite a few years. And I think my son's there now, and he loves it as well, very much. I think it's good to be young there, and it's there's great big parks. You might be in a big busy city, but you've got the greens there as well. So I guess a big change, like to have that many people around you. Yeah. And then when I say I'm green, I'd walk in places that you probably shouldn't, without fear, that I shouldn't have really walked alone. I remember my grandmother, because my father was actually, we've got a French name, so they came off Jersey and into England when they lost their money, and then my father went to New Zealand as a young man. So I remember my grandmother going, "You should not be walking around the Devil's Dyke down near Brighton, around there. It's dangerous to walk around there," kind of thing. Whereas I never really thought of it. Like, I feel very safe in Ireland walking around, doing walks.
Ballydehob.
Yes. Well, even other parts of Ireland, I've been walking in places, and I just think it's very beautiful. And actually, it was quite strange, because when I went home and walked at home, I didn't feel as safe as I felt in Ireland. I thought that was really odd. Maybe my grandmother's haunting.
And your Irish journey, did you say it was a man's fault?
A man's fault? No, you could never say that. I think it was a gift to come to Ireland, to be in Ireland is completely. And definitely a big change. It's not the same as living anywhere else.
Why?
I think because it's sort of an ethereal country, isn't it? To me it is. And people were like the storytelling, the talent, the culture is living. And you go into a bar and anyone and everyone could sing, get up and do a party piece, entertain. At that time, everyone was reading the papers and everyone was very knowledgeable about the news and what's going on in the world. And I think it's beautiful that there are so many festivals and events. It's very strong. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but I think it's that golly mixture of people here from all different places. Obviously, creative folk in particular like coming here. And you can't keep that down. I always say it takes two things for something to happen. Someone to say, how about? And someone else to say, why not? And I think with that creative community, there's a lot of people saying, how about we do a festival about X? And someone else, why not? That's a great idea. Like Skull, let's do a film festival, but we have no cinema. Well, who cares? We'll do it anyway.
Well, there are beautiful people that come to be here with spirit. And because the spirit here is strong, isn't it?
Does the place bring the best out of people?
Well, let's just say, they used to say, if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Whichever way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That it does that. It tests people's capacity to understand each other and themselves, I think. Because it's a difficult, like I didn't understand how people had so many occupations. You realise it's been a tough existence.
Yeah.
And I think when you watch, as a foreigner, and you're watching the Tina G, which I think is an amazing TV station, you see how special that they had to leave their country to survive in their country. I mean, that's a big thing. Sending the money home, caring and doing. It's a tragic history, but it makes art.
Was Ballydahub your first and only port of call, was it?
Well, actually, I have lived in different parts, but...
You didn't cheat on Ballydahub, did you?
Well, let's just say that I don't think you can wash it out of you. No, I have lived in other little villages and other little places. And I think it's the house that called me back.
Ah.
But no, and the people are very special. Ballydahub is quite a unique village, really. And sadly, a lot of those beautiful people have passed. And I'm very lucky because I have a gorgeous little rascal of a godson. So you see the other end coming up, that cute character. But the uniqueness of it was so it's special. So, and I think when you come with children and dogs or animals, you get to meet people as well.
Yeah, a dog is handy.
A dog can be
if you
very
want to socialise,
handy.
or a child, as you say.
Yes, you can do indeed. I don't know whether I'll end up. I probably end up ending my days in Ireland.
Ah, you're stuck.
I think so. I think so. My father saw it that way when he came over.
Tell me about the cancer. How long ago was that?
Oh, quite a while now. I'm very aware how, like, initially anybody who's got it there goes through that journey. You kind of can't believe you're alive. And then you realize each year that goes by how much healthier you are than the year before. You didn't realize how sick you were. I think that's the thing about that. And then you realize as you're getting older, the toll that all of that treatment takes on your body. And you'd get tired or you have to have a different respect with your body. So I'm very fortunate and blessed that I've got very good care. And when I was having treatment in Cork City, when people were telling me, oh, they've gone to New Zealand for their treatment. And I said, well, it's okay, I'm here. And I think people do travel around the world for different treatments, if they've got the finance to do that. But no, so I'm part of the 22+1 with Vicky Phelan's group that she set up, and she's, I think, quite a hero.
Did you know her?
Well, I met her, yes, I did. I wouldn't say I knew her particularly well, but I drew her and she was going to open an exhibition for me. But she did say that if she was alive, I never thought of her dying for some reason. But that's the way I seem to behave with people. Like I didn't realize my friend was dying till she was dead, kind of thing. Because you see people, I guess I see them as living always.
Yeah. Your life experiences, Hammond, could you point to any particular things that had the biggest change in you?
Biggest things that have changed in me?
Yeah, like obviously cancer was a big thing.
Oh, I've had a checkered health history.
Okay.
So I think that that's interesting for people as well. Of people that have been continually kind of having things happen. So I think that shapes the person that you are.
Yeah.
And you'd have gratitude for being alive. And you'd have a different attitude, like you don't think the same way. After, I don't know whether it's the chemotherapy that makes you think differently or not.
How do you think differently?
You're aware that you want to live your best life. You want people to understand that how privileged it is to be alive. And that it's nice to be kind, and you're not stupid when you're kind. People sometimes think if you're kind to somebody that there's an ulterior motive, and I'd have to say to them, look, I could die before you. Please don't give me that responsibility when they say, when they're older and they want you to be responsible for them in a way. We want to leave you this, and you're like, no, that belongs somewhere else. Even though you've done them a kindness, you're doing it. And that's, I think, an interesting point, that people sometimes, they think you're a bit odd that way sometimes, I think. That kind of doing things for people.
Yeah.
Without having, just, mainly because I've had this experience just recently. So I think I've decided now in myself that you just can't stop what's in you, can you? Coming out. Because we were brought up that you never went to anyone's house without having something to give. Like you'd come with, and I remember someone trying to tell me you don't have to bring things, but that's not what it was like. It's a cultural thing, I guess, a family thing.
I think when you go to visit someone, it's a gift, it's a sharing of something. It doesn't have to be something you purchased that costs a lot of money or anything like that.
No. I think illness does create a different human being.
Yeah.
Some people get upset and get angry. And
Did you?
No, because I had already had slippery life. So so it was like, when they told me, I remember just crying that day in the way home, listening to music in the car and just crying, and thought, right, I've had a good cry now. That's it. Get on with it. How do I wish my son to see me? In fact, I wasn't even going to take the treatment because I thought, well, it's inoperable. Why would you bother? And so when I went up there to tell them that, they then said, I said, I don't want to come home and see him seeing me getting sicker and sicker. I don't want to do that. We could just call it, let's forget it. And then they came back in the room and they said, look, you can stay up and have your treatment. And then the Callahers very kindly took Bosco as their son while I was having all that treatment and everything. So he lived with 5 boys, I think, with 5 of them. So I was really blessed. I realized how amazing community is. We don't do this on our own, any of it on our own.
Yeah.
And they were very special. In fact, that would really give you faith in humanity, the way people behave.
That window of sickness from being diagnosed and treatment and eventually it being in the rearview mirror, was that a good number of years?
Well, let's just say I started to do this thing with the person that died. When you're close to somebody, things can happen, and you, like men, go through pregnancies with their wives, and they feel they're also carrying a baby. Well, I had that happen with the friend that died, where my body started going back through things. Memory started playing a tune, and they just checked me out then again. So I don't think anyone can be too smug about their health. Whatever part of health it is, whether it's your mental health or your physical health. So what I was saying about being here is I have a fabulous acupuncturist, I have a fabulous herbalist and a yoga therapist now. So I look after myself.
Yeah. Your dogs look after
you. And they love me dearly.
Tell me about the work. A working, living artist in Ireland, punching it out. What's that life like?
I would say that you have to be prepared to keep going no matter what, which means that you just forego things. And the reward is in the doing. It's not whether you're being at the time or period of the creation of what you're doing, whether people understand it or want it or like it or whatever. You just have to understand that the process is forever, it's continual, and that it can be scary doing your work. You can be afraid to believe in what you're creating or doing, but you have deep within you that need to put it out there. And I would say that even if it's being hidden in a back wardrobe, it's good it's there. It will be found one day.
Yeah. Is there a commercial artist and a for pleasure artist in you, or do both of those things exist at the same time?
Well, let's just say it can be lean. Things happen in life, and the balance out can keep you afloat. As in, I had a terrible accident trying to support my art, and I remember who's now the president of Ireland saying, artists should be doing art, they shouldn't be doing other things, and blah, blah, blah. He's quite right, but it doesn't always happen that way. You have to dig and do things as well. So I'm kind of fortunate that I do have the disability from that. Okay. So otherwise I'd probably starve.
Yeah. But you work commercially as well, don't you?
Yes, I would illustrate books and do things. Yeah. But you don't make a lot of money doing things like that. Yeah. I mean, nobody's making great deals of money, and really particularly, I don't. Not. Yeah. Even especially as a female, they still get paid a lot less than a man does for their work.
So when your child comes to you and
wants to be an artist, let them do it.
Let them do it?
Absolutely.
But sign up for tough life.
Both be signing up for a tough life, because you'll be paying out for a few things. You need a patron, really. In some ways, I think it's still that old-fashioned way.
There's probably good reason for that, because that's the nature of profession, I think, in a way.
Yeah, it is, really. There's a lot of artists. As they say, you could shake a tree and a whole lot of poets would fall out of it. I think it could be the same. You could shake a tree and a lot of visual artists will fall out of it as well.
Is there a particular piece that you've done that means more to you than anything else?
That's an interesting one, really, isn't it? I did a drawing of my son that I love when he was a baby, stretched out, and I think that means an awful lot to me. That time I was doing drawings, because I was told by you never draw off photographs, and I remember being asked to do drawings of photographs of Samuel Beckett and going, oh my God, my teacher would be going ape. But anyhow, so at the same time, so I was doing all these drawings, and I drew Emmett, and I love that drawing. I think that there's other drawings that it's like anything, like looking at photographs. Your memories go straight in there, and you remember the time. So they're all your little babies, and they have their own screaming match at you at times when you're working through them. But I would say that It's a very rich thing to do for oneself and for others to share in, and that it's probably humbling being an artist because it's quite difficult to make an existence out of it. So I think that makes a different person as well.
If someone wants to contact you, how can they do it?
Well, I'm put in the Mizzen with Chris O'Dell, set that up. So there's that, and there's a couple of galleries here. I was with the Blue House in Skull and Ashton Gallery in Ballydehob. But mainly, I'm working away on a couple of projects. I want to try and get my drawings, as I said initially, of the writers. I want to try and get that sorted out. And equally, I'm into Sheila gigs. So I want to try and get an exhibition to do with my last theme. So I'm working sideways like a crab at many different aspects. And every time if there's a literary event or like anything going on, I'll be doing drawings and keeping those going. And at the same time, I did a series of red horses, which is related to that wonderful Lament to Arto Leary. So I keep a little series of things, and I did, which sounds strange with my New Zealand accent, but blue bulls, actually those four-legged ones, not balls. So I have a few things that I just keep doing those and keep them on file for myself. And then Woman is a Workhorse is another series. So I run in series of things that I would just work away on. And yeah.
Have your writers become your horses?
I think they definitely have.
Yeah.
Trotting behind them with a pencil lead.
And your love of books, I think you drawing your favourite writers was no accident.
It doesn't look that way, does it? It doesn't start out like that.
Yeah.
It didn't start out like that, you know. I was very blessed because I was drawing John Heath Stubbs, he was a beautiful man, gentleman, and a very fine poet, and he was blind. So that was a gift for me and for him to have me, that he would never ask to look at anything. So whatever I drew, it was like that. It wasn't like someone was staring over what you're at, because he was really my first. And another poet called Podrick Fierk, who was from the north and wrote about the Troubles, and he was wonderful with me as well. So I think when you're starting drawing people or whatever, especially in a relationship like that, it's nice when you're just allowed to have that freedom with your own work, that no one's looking over it, making judgments, going, oh, I don't really look like that. And they don't ask to look at it. So it's nice. So that's a nice beginning. So I'd say that to any young person that's going, just go for it and don't worry about the result.
What's happiness to you?
What's happiness to me? Baking. That's what a lady said to me. She said when I first knew I was ill, she said, I knew you were going to be okay because you started baking. So
what is it about baking?
I think there's nothing nicer than making biscuits and giving them to people. Sharing a piece of yourself.
It's a nice gift to bring if you visit someone, isn't it? Something that you made yourself.
Yes. And being in the sea is a nice space to be in.
There's plenty of it around here.
That is, and it's definitely worth being in.
Where do you go? Where's your favourite spot?
There I'm very, very blessed as well, because Nellie Cotter's husband kindly allows me to swim off his land.
Ah, okay.
So I actually can now go into the sea with my 3 little dogs and be in a whole space by myself, which is lovely, up from Skull. So it's really nice.
And they're beautiful little dogs. The listeners will obviously have heard them, but they won't have seen them. Could you describe them?
Right. Well, we start with the one that's closest to you.
Yeah. My little buddy.
Yes. Well, Louis Radar, with those great big ears that are moving.
He knows you're talking about him.
He does. He's just about to start posing. He is a miniature Jack Russell. He's cute, isn't he?
Lovely
So
colour.
he's red and white. And all these dogs are rescue dogs.
Yeah.
So he's the last one in. And this chap that's closest to me here is...
The small eyes.
with the small eyes. He's Ace, and Ace is half Jack Russell and half Cairn Terrier. And he, when you were last here, had a cone round his neck, and he actually had cancer on his nose, which Tim, the vet, who's lovely, cut off and out, and he's all okay, thank God. And this one...
Oh, I thought she had gone out.
Oh, no, she's busy. She'd just be guard dog under here. She is 3/4 Yorkshire Terrier, and the other bit is none other than Jack Russell. But she's, so she came to keep this fellow company. I wouldn't imagine I was going to have 3 little dogs, truthfully. I mean, you could stack them all together. We used to have boxer dogs.
You collected them along the way.
So, yeah, I did.
And maybe they collected you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They definitely have. And do you know what? They are fabulous companions. And they move beautifully. So they float across the landscape, don't you?
The other little question I ask people, and it's about winning. And for me, in a way, being happy is good, but, achieving your goals, whatever that looks like, things that you aim for or things that give you loads of moments of satisfaction, elation. What does that look like for you at this stage?
Conversation.
Yeah.
Healthy conversation with my sons.
Yeah.
Eve and others. I think that's really happiness, is that, isn't it? When you can relate to another human being or an animal and have a harmonious understanding of each other. Sharing in that's really a lovely thing.
It really is.
And I think, how could you not be happy in this landscape?
Yeah, that's true.
You'd have to have...
Get over the weather.
And it's quite extraordinary that we're doing this twice, isn't it?
Absolutely. Maybe there was a reason for that.
Yeah.
So I've got one last question for you. And
is it difficult?
No, the last time I was here,
yes,
I asked you a question about a memory from your childhood.
Oh gosh.
That's very precious. It was a lovely story, and I remember, when I left, I was telling Dee about it. I thought that was very, very special. And do you remember? And there might be a hint in the picture behind you, in the photograph behind you, maybe.
With the pony?
Yeah.
No?
I think it was a story about a special day you had with your mum.
Oh, this is about dressage. Yes, it's definitely something I'll take to the grave. And it would be nice. Yes. We went away and just the whole journey was magical. Yes. We went to compete and we slept in the horse float. It's something that I treasure because I realized that my siblings never had it either. They never had that moment away with Mother. So we drove, Mother drove, and we went through. She used to have like the maths book with my fine Minx cat was like the place around, but it was extra because we had extra letters for her during her course. So making sure we knew our tests off by heart on the way up. And then we came home both champions. which was quite extraordinary, really.
So you're cheering each other on in your respective competitions.
Yes, and just to share something that's like plaiting the horses in the morning together and cleaning all the tack. And we didn't have, like, in England, people have grooms and stuff like that. Well, you were everything.
You were it.
We were it for our horses, for ourselves, turning them out and doing it and riding. And that's definitely something that I'll never forget, because it wasn't in the winning, it was in the sharing.
Yeah.
And to have actually gone through the same thing together, to know what it's like to go into to ride up the centre line and halt and hope your horse is square, then to finish the same way, to be square again, and to have not forgotten your test, and to travel home the same journey, and how you feel about sharing, eating things on the way. My mother loved, which sounds probably sacrilege to any chef, but it was oysters and batter. Doesn't sound like an aphrodisiac, does it?
No.
But there was you stopping and getting 6 oysters and batter. We used to probably at one stage you get 12 for the price of 6 later on. But no. Thanks for that. I probably said it in a different way last time, but and all the barley sugar. She used to eat truckloads of barley sugar. It's terrible for your teeth, but for the energy. I don't think they even sell barley sugars anymore, do they?
I know exactly the sweets you're talking about. I'm not sure. We'll have to do a Mr. Google to see if you can find barley sugar.
And licorice. Yeah. No, and like there are memories of like the pony. They were like puppies, one of these ponies, Pickles. She would get through and into the loose box and into the and get and tip over the molasses tin and having it running all over. There's memories of things like that I wrote a children's story, and Bernard Stone, who had Turret Bookshop in London, and he was reading the story I'd written, which never has been published or anything like that, but I wanted him to read it and see what he thought. And he goes to me, "What's molasses? What's a lead rein?" I was like, oh my God. And then, so I just sort of like hid it all away. And then about 6 months later, I'm in his bookshop and he goes, "Have you done anything with those stories?" And I thought, oh my God, I thought they were terrible. Because your childhood lives with you. So for me, I was writing that for Emmett was a little boy then, and I was writing it for him about the pony that had given me a lot of fun and pleasure. And it was so funny because you just realize the language. It's like, do people know what molasses is?
Yeah.
But you just have to have a glossary. That's what I should have said to him, but I didn't know to use that term on him.
I presume there's no better person on this earth to illustrate that story than you.
They don't like doing that, supposedly.
But would you do it?
Well, I did. I had the illustrations in the text. Yeah. But I think when I was talking to somebody that when I was asking about that, they were saying how they often like to put that together themselves.
Oh, the they people.
They being the publisher. And it's interesting, isn't it? But it would be fun to do. I might still do. I would like to. I'm with a friend of mine, Kathleen O'Reilly, and I was going to do that this winter. We're going to do it together. We're going to do some writing and painting together and doing that because she's the blessed one with having grandchildren. I'm not. So it kind of inspires you to get that going again, to get the text out. And I did one about a flea called Draco Flea. And I wrote to, I think she's Rothschild, was a flea specialist in the National Gallery and the Natural History Museum of London. I wrote to find out about fleas, and I thought that she might give me some photographs of fleas jumping, and instead she did a diagram. I've got to dig that out because that's really quite funny, isn't it? Of a flea jumping, and I was thinking, no, actually I'd quite like to see them photograph jumping. So I got a dog flea photograph from the Natural History Museum.
It sounds like a project.
it's definitely a project that needs to be jumped up.
Hammond, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I am so glad the first recording mucked up. Maybe it was the spirit saying, no, you need to come back and have a proper conversation. And I've noticed you were sketching all the way through our conversation, so I'm very, very curious, but we'll get to that maybe with a cup of tea or something. I don't know.
With an Anzac biscuit and a cup of tea.
Lovely.
But actually, we've got to make the date for your mama.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, thank you for remembering that. That's cool.
Yeah, I'd like to do that for you.
Yeah, she went to the States and she hurt her leg, as I was saying, and yeah, she should be done maybe next week or the week after.
Well, please ring me because I would come.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Come and do that. I'd love to do that for you. Because it's a bit of a trek, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to get through 3 dogs to get here.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for spending your time.
Thank you. Oh, my God, my honour. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the When Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.